Hello, welcome. We're excited to have you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Joshua Stamper, for roasting me right before I come on.
He did
No, I'm
not
kidding.
roast you.
I love Josh, and he has a right to be to hate in schools traditional in school suspension because it's totally different than what I do. So
Right. And
he's absolutely right.
I think this is fabulous that we get like different views at this and like different ways to approach it. So we're excited to have you here. So let me give you a formal introduction. So Johnathan is an author and executive director, and he is talking about the art of in-school suspension. And like you're saying, like traditional in-school suspension is brutal. Absolutely brutal. So, Johnathan is a veteran educator with over a decade of experience supporting students in the highest needs. He spent 7 years teaching special education on a therapeutic campus for students with severe emotional disturbance, followed by 5 years leading in school suspension programs at two middle schools. After seeing firsthand how traditional ISS programs were failing to support the academic, behavioral, and emotional needs of at risk students, Johnathan developed a trauma informed ISS model that transforms the ISS room from a punitive space into a structured intervention. He went on to successfully implement this model across multiple campuses and later documented the process in his book, The Art of In School Suspension. Today, he helps schools nationwide through his training program, guiding educators in turning ISS from a holding tank into a high impact tool for behavior change and academic support. So, this is fantastic.
Yeah, thank you for that intro.
You're welcome. And I think this actually is a great combo with Josh of like, how do we keep kids in the classroom, but when they have to be out of the classroom, like, let's make this like all work together. So, can you give us a little bit of your personal journey into how like you became this authority on in school suspension? Because it sounds like you spent some years working in that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I was as surprised as anyone to learn that I'm an authority on in school suspension. I can tell you when I learned this about myself. I can pinpoint the moment, the exact moment this happened. Um, so as you mentioned, I came from a school for students with emotional disturbance. I taught special ed, high school English language arts for 5 years there, and then 2 years of PE, all grade levels. And then was looking to make a change and ended up on a regular campus, regular middle school, 1,400 kids, all different types of needs. I took the in-school suspension position. It was supposed to be transitional. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do in education, but I figured, 7 years I'd done my part for King and Country, so I was going to like go teach an elective or something. I don't know. So I took the ISS position just to give myself some time to think and figure things out. And within the first year of my joining that campus, I had teachers approaching me in the hallway saying like, "Hey, my kid gets done more work done in one day with you than they do all week with me. Like, how are you getting this kid to work? What's happening in there?" So the campus immediately, within less than a semester, I'd say first quarter, was already seeing a big change in what they were used to because they were used to a traditional in-school suspension room and what I was doing. What I was doing wasn't even that fully evolved yet. It was just, they noticed in year one. In year two, the district began to notice. So somebody high up in central office deemed my room, my ISS, a model in school suspension program. And one day, our district was sort of mentoring another district on PBIS implementation and school discipline and a bunch of other stuff, and they bring all these folks into my room this day. I have like 15 people. They're all district folks who never go to ISS. Like if you work in a district, you know that the district will go to classrooms, they'll do walkthroughs, they'll do learning walks. They don't really go to ISS. So I have like my district folks are in there. There's some associate superintendents from another district in there, and all of them are like super interested in what I'm doing. They're like taking notes and asking questions. They're like, "Yeah, we've never seen anything like this before." So it was then that I just realized, like, oh, this is something that not only can support the students and the teachers in a large way, but also further up. Like we're supporting the administrators because they don't know what to do either. They're all at a loss for how do we fix this? How do we fix this discipline problem? How do we fix the revolving door to ISS? How do we, cut down on recidivism? How do we get these classrooms under control? And so that was when I noticed that, and that was when I started writing the book, The Art of In-School Suspension.
Wow. Okay. So like you have this turning point with like the I and I actually can relate to that of like so many ISS teachers, like the kids like don't, it's like you've said, like Josh had, like kids go there and they don't get anything done. But when you have like someone who approaches it differently, like you did, like kids actually are like getting things done. They're coming back to class ready, like all of this. So, like, what about the collaboration side of like working with the staff? And like you mentioned some of this of like administrators seeing like there's something different going on in here. Like, we need to get some more of this. Can you talk about that side of like the collaboration piece?
Yeah, I mean, initially there was very little collaboration with the in-school suspension room, which I understand because if you look at the data, like 99% of in-school suspension programs are totally ineffective when it comes to academics and behavior. So the job that it's supposed to be doing in 99% of cases, it's not doing it. So if you're a school teacher, you're going to spend your time actually putting together some assignment or sending it to the in-school suspension room, and it just never comes back, or it comes back incomplete, or just comes back with scribbles on it, whatever. You're only going to do that so many times before you just stop, right? Why would I keep, when I have all these other things to do, why would I keep, just sending work into a vortex when it's extra time on my schedule? So I just invented this new concept, which is work returning from the in-school suspension room completed in 100% of the cases, and that actually evolved into what we call zero loss of instructional time for in-school suspension. That is our North Star. That became the North Star of our company. That became the North Star of what I do every day. And honestly, once you get the right systems in place, hitting 100% loss of zero loss of instruction, meaning all core content assignments are done daily as a minimum, and electives. That's a pretty low bar to hit, honestly. I find that very easy to accomplish. It's the opposite of what you see in general, but you just need the right systems in place, and you can get there.
I love like that zero instructional time lost. Like, I think that's huge because I know here where I am, there's been some shifts in legislation and things where like you have to track the number of hours of instructional time lost. And if a student reaches a certain level, like there's certain consequences for your district. So it's kind of this top down, you need to be avoiding ISS if at all possible. So then I feel like teachers are feeling like, oh my goodness, my hands are tied in behavior because my administrator is not going to put a kid in ISS, so there's no consequences for behavior. But if you've got a structure where they're not losing instructional time, like that's so powerful. Like kids aren't they're they're not losing that. And I've been the teacher that was like, why am I spending the time sending this stuff for this kid? Because I know it's going to come back, like you said, with scribbles on it or like lost. Like it just went into a black hole. So you've got a couple of pillars that go along with your, like, you are trauma informed in what you do in ISS, which I think is really, really important because a lot of the kids that are ending up there have so much trauma that is kind of causing behaviors or leading to behaviors. So like you have these pillars of safety, transparency, collaboration, and empowerment. Like what's that look like in an ISS room that's getting you this zero instructional time lost?
Sure. So those are the four pillars of trauma-informed teaching. That's not exclusive to an in-school suspension. That's just good teaching practices. So, but when you apply it to an ISS, it's not going to be different in kind, but different by degree. So obviously in an in-school suspension room, you're going to have a higher amount of structure than you would in a regular classroom, but it's not totally different than some of the things you would have in place in a regular classroom. So, but I can run through the four of them really quickly with you. So for safety, that's our first pillar. You're looking at basically you're creating a safe, predictable environment, right? So there should be no unexpected redirections in the in-school suspension room because trauma doesn't really respond well, whether the students are coming to us with trauma or not. Spoiler alert, most of them are, but um, there shouldn't be any sort of unexpected redirection, something that comes at them that they weren't ready for. So safe, predictable environment, that involves me communicating exactly what I expect of them, but them also knowing exactly what to expect from me. Okay, and that's very important. So they know how I'm going to respond to everything before it happens. It's already explained up front. So that's our first pillar. And then transparency is, it goes right along with safety, right? if I like to use the quote, "Clear is kind, unclear is unkind" by Brene Brown. So if you think about most traditional in-school suspension rooms, what they look like often is they'll have the students come in the room, and then the first thing they'll get them in their seats, and the first thing they do is like, "Here, copy the ISS room rules." And there's a lot of reasons they do that. Usually they're not organized and they just don't have the assignments or anything ready for the kids. So that's something that they do to kill time. Um, and that is really ineffective for two reasons. One, it is not clearly communicating your expectations. You're communicating something. You're communicating that here, this is a punitive environment. The school won, you lost. So here, I'm going to give you this busy work to do. And then two, the reason you really shouldn't do it is because you are killing any momentum that you could have been building when it comes to assignment completion and getting to that zero loss of instruction. You are crushing that right off the bat. So that's not an effective way. We have an effective way of communicating our expectations every morning. It's called Win the Morning, Win the Day. It's this whole process that we go through. It takes about 15, maybe 20 minutes. And that just gets everybody ready for the day, and it gets us right into starting to work on academics. And then, we kind of push SEL towards the end of the day. But that's our transparency piece. I will, by the way, have my students copy the ISS from rules. That is part of the behavior ladder, but it's not happening right away. It's not something they didn't see coming. Like, it's something towards the middle where they've already been redirected multiple times and received some confidence. Like, hey, you're gonna have to copy the rules because I don't give you busy work unless you earn it in here, but you're gonna have to copy my ISS room rules if you continue what you're doing here. So again, there's no surprises. Nothing's going to come as a shock to them. They know exactly what to expect from me at all times. Um, and yeah, that's transparency. Collaboration is the third one. Uh, the goal, as Joshua said, we talked about earlier, the goal always is to keep the student connected to the learning environment. Always. So in-school suspension is still school. Um, the first collaboration, like the first level of that, is going to be ISS teacher to teacher, or teacher to ISS facilitator, whoever you have in there, and that's so that you can have all of the regular classwork available by at the latest, like middle of first period. And then we need to have a system for that. There is a system for that. Because if you don't, then you're communicating again something that you don't want to be communicating, which is that uh, here we want you to do your work, but we don't really know where it is right now or what it is. And so, we'll find it eventually. Here, copy these rules or just sit there for a little while. And so you're communicating academics really are not important in this room because we are not organized. We don't have that for you. So we have an amazing system for getting classroom work right to the in-school suspension. So everything is meaningful. There's no busy work. Everything that they're doing is what they would be doing in regular class. And it's called a spreadsheet. It's nothing fancy. You can make one on your own. It's not difficult. But you can get it done with a good spreadsheet. Super, super easy. And then the next level of collaboration that I always think about is teacher to student. I have an eternity with my learners in ISS. I have like 8 hours almost, as compared to like with a relatively small number of kids. And my classroom teachers have 30 kids for 45 minutes. You can't get a lot done. So when I say zero loss of instruction, that is a very minimal standard. I hit that every day without even trying. What we're really looking for is, are we getting all the zeros knocked out of the grade book? Are we getting intervention? Are we backfilling skill deficits that we didn't learn in the last couple of years? Because that can really prepare the student to really be engaged when they go back to class, more so than anything else, I think. So if they're actually able to engage with the material, they tend to do a lot better, right? A lot of kids, the behaviors are, the behaviors are for any number of reasons. I'm not going to pin it on one thing, but a lot of time, if you've already given up in class or you're just like, I don't get any of this stuff, what else is there to do other than, maybe be a little disruptive, maybe sleep. I get it. If you don't know what's going on, so I can get you back to where you need to be, at least for this 6 weeks, hopefully. In most cases, a lot of times it's only a couple of deficits that we got to fill, and then they're ready, for the material. And then the last one, I hope that explained collaboration for you guys. And empowerment would be, we don't empower our students by not holding them accountable. That's not empowerment, that's appeasement. So ISS, the students are still going to intensely dislike their time in there. But we're not just, it's not a punitive totally punitive environment, but they are earning a consequence, right? But we're going to empower them because I have a system for delivering my rules and expectations at the very beginning of the day. And then I have a system to collaborate with the teachers that I mentioned. And I have another system that I haven't mentioned where it organizes everything all together in the room, because the difficult part of in-school suspension isn't behaviors at all, really. It's 8 students times 7 teachers. That is a lot of communication. That is a pain. And then you have to organize all of that in the room so that you can offer to empower the students to give them choice, right? Where do you want to start today? You want to start with math? Great. We're going to start with math. You want to start with ELA? We'll start there. You want to start with social? I don't care where we start. As long as it's core content, we're going to do core content first, then we'll do electives. If you can offer them that choice to start off, that is actually giving them a little bit more power than they would have in a regular school day where the classes are dictated by the hour of the day. And then you start building that relationship and you're starting to build that momentum. You're going to find that students are always going to either pick, there's 2 kinds. They're going to pick their least preferred subject, or they're going to pick their most preferred subject. And it doesn't matter which one, because either way, you're building that momentum. And while you're building that momentum with the student and you're giving them some academic engagement, you're giving them some one-to-one help as needed, you're building a relationship all day long. You've got that full time, and you're continuously building that relationship through the academics properly, a proper teacher-student relationship. You're not just relating to them like, hey, do you like Pokemon? I do too. Like you're actually having this back and forth teacher-student relationship with the child for a good amount of time. And then, at the end of the day, when they're ready for it, because you've built that relationship and they've sort of detoxed off of all the the dopamine, all the the social media and the talkies and the video games and everything, they've kind of like come down off of all of that, then they're ready to like experience human connection. And so the SEL, I always tell people, they'll try to like fix an in-school suspension room by like, oh, we need better SEL or we need more SEL, and they try to cram more of that, and that's never the answer to fixing an in-school suspension program. It's a part of it. It's definitely an important part of in-school suspension, but it needs to have its place, and the best place I've found for it is kind of towards the end of the day. So the students feel like they didn't enjoy their time, I promise you, in ISS, but they feel accomplished when they feel like they've done something when they've left. And if you want me to just kind of encapsulate it for you, because to Josh's point, loss of instructional time is the harm, right? If you look at any type of exclusionary discipline, whether you're talking about out of OSS or ISS, the harmful part is the loss of instructional time. There aren't any studies that are like, hey, our most at-risk students are totally fine to miss days and days of instruction, like no big deal, right? Those studies do not exist. Everything points to the fact that the more days of instruction they lose, the more time they lose, the worse off they are. And the worse off they are behaviorally too. I mean, the two go hand in. I never separate behavior from academics. I don't. Schools tend to try to do that. They try to split things off. I just don't. It's all connected. So, yeah, we're not eliminating the consequence of in-school suspension. We're just taking away the harm.
I love that, and I love how you explained like that 0 lost instructional time is the lowest bar you're setting. That you're actually going beyond that, and you're actually, I can't think of the word that I want right now. It's escaping me, but like rehabilitating almost their academics, where you're knocking out those zeros in the grade book. You're getting them caught up. You're helping them get these skills that they're missing. And I think that's such a key use of ISS, of like, you do have a much smaller ratio of students to the teacher. So now you've got more time to be like, okay, let's look at what do we need to fill in here? What do you need to get done beyond just today's work? Like, we knocked that out already in an hour. Now let's look at what's missing. Let's look at the gaps that you have in your learning, and let's start filling those pieces in. You're sending a kid back into the classroom better off than they left the classroom. Now I, as a classroom teacher, I'm like, okay, like I know what's going to come back to me. And I know that this kid's actually going to be in a better place when I get them back. Like, they'll have the work done plus. And so now we can actually move ahead. So it's remediation. That's the word I was looking for. I was like,
I call it intervention, but yeah, it's remediation. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So it's turning ISS from just a behavioral intervention to per se, which is causing some academic loss, all of that, the harm, you're removing the harm from it and actually turning it into something really good. So like, where does a school start this that has like the traditional ISS? Like, what's the first step into fixing it and turning it like into this art that you have?
Okay, fire everyone first. No, you know, I train for folks all over in multiple states now. I've only been a company for barely 2 years, but we have several districts in Texas, and then in I think 6 or 7 states now have well, a few schools. It's not like widespread or anything. I want it to be widespread because I want to. The goal is to really change exclusionary discipline for the better, and I will do that any way I can. And I've made this program. We got an online program. I've made it as inexpensive as possible. I think the people, some schools with their Sunshine Fund could get it. So you can start with something as simple as the online training and getting folks, just trained. But you can't, I when I started in school suspension, my training was simply here's the keys. If 10 kids go in, make sure 10 kids come back out. And good luck. You'll probably be better than the last person, right?
Mm-hmm.
So having some training and having some understanding and some expectation, honestly, of the person in the room, it's not got to be a lot. I always start people off pretty simple. So when a district comes in and says either I want you to work with us personally, in person on this, or just the online stuff, I always let the administrators know, like, here in this, the first year, let's just work on these first three modules. Get to the win the morning, win the day, and provide some academic support. That's what we're looking for, so that the teacher knows, once they figure out how easy it is to gain and maintain instructional control of the room. And it's not always easy. I'm making it sound easier than it is. It's not always super simple. I mean, it takes time and practice to learn these skills, just like any teaching position. But just focusing on some of the basic stuff and getting to zero loss of instruction. Even if you're not getting to zero loss of instruction your first year, you're going to do a lot better than what you had before. You're gonna even you're gonna get to like, okay, maybe only 75% loss of instruction in year one, but you can easily get to where once they start hitting their stride, they're going to love it. I mean, ISS can be miserable for the students and the teacher if they're just running like a dungeon, and they're constantly trying to put out fires and go after behaviors. But once you get to where you're working with the kids and everybody's working and it feels, you feel great every day, the teachers love you because you are supporting them so much. They're like, oh wow, this kid is, he came back with no zeros. Like, we got all those knocked out. I've knocked out like 10 zeros in a math class. You know how hopeless a kid is who has 10 zeros in the grade book, and then they find out like, oh, well, actually it wasn't that hard to like knock all those out. It just needed a little bit of, some attention and some one-to-one. uh, we do stuff like that all the time. I mean, it feels like a miracle to the kid, but it's really not that big of a deal. Once once you see what an integral part of the campus you are, that position it's a lot of fun. I never really want to stop doing it. I get offered like a behavior specialist position every year in my district and all this stuff. I never take it. I think I've turned down behavior specialists like 5 years in a row now. I'm just setting a record for like how many times I can say no to that position. I would rather be in school suspension because I'm an educator and I like what I do. And I've seen paras. You don't even have to be a teacher. I've seen paraprofessionals do a great job in school suspension, and I've seen full credentialed teachers do a terrible job. I mean, most of 99% of the people who are in there, whatever they are, they're not doing great at it right now. And a lot of that is just because they don't know how. So we got to just show them, give them a chance, like, hey, we're going to train you and we're just going to look for a few small things, these three things this first year. If you can get that knocked out, then great. We'll see what we can do the next year.
I'm gonna
I try
copy
to
and
make it as realistic as possible.
I'm gonna copy and paste your name and information to every Oklahoma and Texas educator because I think the no cell phone policy that came, I think you might have heard me telling that to Josh, but like it's the new infraction is ISS, and I'm like, oof, oof, 'cause it's not they're all the typical ones. I haven't heard of until I was introduced to you and created that introduction. I had never heard of the art of in-school suspension, which I'm sure that since it's so new, but we're so grateful for you to come on and share how you're changing it. because and that you enjoy it. I can tell that you enjoy it, like that and that you're good at it, right? So
Thank you.
thank
Yeah.
Yeah,
you.
I
And
love what I
like
do.
You can tell.
you're empowering the kids too.
Yeah.
Like you said, like the hopelessness they have with that many zeros in the grade book, like one zero can like kill a kid's grade. But like some of them have like,
Zeros are deadly.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
deadly. And like that's
Yeah.
another topic that we could get into. But like once they realize like, oh, that assignment only takes like 5 minutes, I like, okay, sure, I can knock out another one. And then they like you're empowering them to have control over their own grades and their own destiny of like, oh, I don't have to be such a nudge in the classroom. Like if I were to actually do this assignment, well, oh my goodness, like this is the difference it makes for me. So I just see the how you're empowering kids too to be like start to take back control of their academics of like, oh, like I'm not a hopeless cause. Like, because I think that's where some of the behavior comes from too, because they walk into class and like, why should I even bother? I've got 10 zeros in here. There's no way for me to make it up. Like, I'm never getting out of this situation. So why not cause trouble? Like, why not just do whatever I want and, all these things. So I think that's absolutely amazing.